Morning has not yet fully arrived, and yet the light is already cruel. It leaks through the canopy in long, thin blades, pale gold, slicing the humid air, revealing the silhouettes of women standing barefoot in the mud. Their ankles sink slightly with each tremble of their legs, making soft, sucking sounds, as though the earth itself is trying to anchor them in place, refusing to let them fall even as fear threatens to pull them under. A line of Japanese women. Prisoners stands completely still, hands clasped behind their heads, faces pale with exhaustion and sleepless terror, hair matted to scalps with sweat, rain, and the sticky residue of jungle nights. Rifles are pointed at them. American rifles. Long, oil-scented, dark metal rifles that seem to breathe with the men who hold them. Their barrels glisten with dew. The women can't look directly at them for more than a second. It feels like looking into the open mouths of animals. The loudest sound is not the guns. It is their breathing, short, tight, uneven, like a single creature gasping through 100 throats. Hannah, 23, stands near the center of the line. She tries to keep her back straight, but her body betrays her. Her knees tap together, tiny staccato beats she cannot control. She focuses on a leaf quivering on a nearby branch. She imagines it is trembling with her, not from a breeze. Her mind whispers the same sentence again and again. This is where it ends. Next to her is Aiko, older by nearly a decade. A schoolteacher before the war swallowed her life whole. One lens of her glasses is cracked, the other fogged from sweat and fear. She keeps pushing them up the bridge of her nose even though her hands are supposed to remain behind her head. The gesture is reflex, a habit from a world that no longer exists. Her voice, a thread of breath, slips from her lips. Stand straight. Don't shake. Don't show them. But the words melt when the rifles shift. A girl barely 16 stands at the end of the row. Her shoulders hitch with every shallow breath. Tears streak clean paths down her dust-covered cheeks. She presses her lips together to keep them from trembling, but they tremble anyway. A soft cry escapes, barely a sound. More exhale than voice. More fear than air. She whispers something that sounds like mother. An American sergeant steps forward, boots sinking slightly into the soft ground. The women flinch at each step. His silhouette seems enormous against the clearing broad shoulders, a heavy belt, the outline of a pistol at his hip. He stops just a few paces away. Hannah's stomach coils, so tightly she feels it rising into her throat. Iko's cracked glasses slide again. The young girl shuts her eyes as if to spare herself the sight of death approaching. The rifles rise only a fraction, but enough. Someone gasps. Someone else starts to faint. The jungle goes silent. The world holds its breath. The sergeant inhales, preparing to speak. Whatever words are about to leave his mouth will decide whether the next minute becomes memory or execution. The journey to captivity begins long before the women step into American hands. It begins in the rumble of retreat, in the choking smoke of burning outposts, in the shrill orders barked through shattered rooms. It begins on the night the world collapses beneath their feet. Yuki remembers the moment clearly, the earth trembling under distant shellfire, the sky turning the color of bruised metal, the frantic scramble through undergrowth slick with rain and blood. They had been trained to expect the enemy to appear like monsters. Eyes glowing. Teeth bared, bayonets dripping. Propaganda carved those images deep into them, like inscriptions in stone. As their unit fell apart, the women formed a small cluster, clutching rifles they barely understood, whispering prayers to ancestors they feared they had disappointed. Every rustle in the jungle felt like death reaching for them. Hannah tripped over a root, her knees slamming into the mud. "They'll torture us," she gasped. "Americans." "They don't take prisoners." Masako pulled her up with trembling hands. "We die with honor then. Better that than capture." But fear made liars of them all. None wanted to die. Hours later, maybe minutes, maybe years, they found themselves encircled by beams of light and the metallic clicks of rifles being cocked. American voices shouted. Hands rose instinctively. Weapons dropped into the mud. In that moment, Yuki's throat burned with the humiliation of surrender. She felt the weight of her ancestors press on her shoulders, crushing, unforgiving. One soldier approached them with slow, Measured steps. He wasn't snarling, he wasn't mocking, he wasn't even angry. He simply said, "It's okay, you're safe now." Safe. The word hit them like a slap. Safe was not a possibility. Safe was a lie told to children. As they were escorted through the jungle, the women braced for cruelty. Every gesture felt like the beginning of violence. When a soldier offered Yuki water, she recoiled violently, expecting poison or humiliation. Instead, he simply placed the canteen on a rock and stepped away, not watching her, the forest around. Them seemed to shift with their fear, trees leaning like silent witnesses, leaves dripping like tears, the ground sucking at their boots as if trying to pull them further from escape. Hannah whispered, "Why are they not hitting us?" No one answered. The walk felt endless. Heat pressing on their backs, sweat stinging their eyes. Mosquitoes humming like distant warnings. Every few minutes, one of the women would glance at the American. Soldiers still expecting the facade to break, expecting the brutality they'd been promised. Yet nothing happened. No shoves. No insults. No gloating. Just quiet footsteps leading them to a camp lit by lanterns instead of flames. Yuki felt the confusion settling deep in her stomach, twisting tighter with every step. If the enemy was not monstrous, then what truth had they been living? This question followed them like a shadow, long before they reached the bamboo enclosure. Long before the dawn when they thought they would die. The American camp appears slowly through the trees, not as a fortress of cruelty, not as a cage lined with whips and rifles, but as something far stranger. It looks ordinary. Lanterns sway gently from wooden posts, laundry flutters on lines strung between tents. Somewhere, impossibly, someone laughs, a deep, unguarded sound that makes the women stiffen in confusion. How can anyone laugh in a place where prisoners are held? How can the enemy behave as if the world is not collapsing? Yuki feels her pulse thudding in her neck. Hot and unsteady, every step forward feels like stepping into a trap. As they enter the camp, the smell hits them first. Not blood, not waste, not fear, but something warm and foreign, something like grilled meat, like bread. Like comfort. It terrifies. Then Masako whispers, "They want us calm before the torture?" Even she doesn't seem convinced. An American soldier opens a bamboo enclosure for them, gesturing politely. The word doesn't fit with anything they've been taught. He does not shove them inside. He does not spit. He does not sneer. He simply says, "Here, rest." Hannah flinches as if struck. Yuki steps into the enclosure slowly. Her senses sharp as broken glass. Inside, the ground is packed with soft dirt. Not gravel. There is a makeshift roof, bamboo and canvas to keep rain off their heads. In the corner, unbelievably, like blankets folded into neat squares. Blankets. Folded. Waiting for them. A small gasp escapes someone at the back. Why? A woman murmurs. The Americans don't answer. They simply close the gate, not with a slam, not with a rattle meant to frighten, but with a quiet click. The women gather in a trembling huddle in the center of the enclosure. Everything feels wrong. Where is the brutality? The anger? The revenge? Yuki touches one of the blankets with 2 fingers, expecting it to be filthy or coarse, but it is soft, thick, still faintly warm from the sun. Her breath catches. She pulls her hand back quickly. As if burned, a soldier passes by the enclosure carrying a crate. Inside are objects the women immediately recognize: soap, toothbrushes, folded towels. Items that had vanished from their lives months ago, swallowed by the starvation and chaos of the collapsing empire. Yuki's eyes lock onto a bar of soap. It is thick, white, heavy-looking. The kind that smells faintly of flowers. For a moment she forgets how to breathe, before she can understand what she's seeing. An American soldier sets the crate near the gate and steps away. No explanation. No commands. Just provision. Hannah whispers shakily. They want us clean before execution. Masako shakes her head, but her eyes betray her. Or maybe this is another trick. Yuki feels a strange ache in her chest, not exactly fear, not exactly hope, but the painful collision of both. The smallest acts of kindness feel more frightening than the cruelty. They were prepared for, because cruelty can be resisted, but kindness breaks something open. She turns the blanket in her hands, her throat tightening. If the enemy is capable of gentleness, then what else have they been wrong about? That question hangs in the air like a breath waiting to be exhaled, and none of them dare answer it yet. The first full day in the American camp unfolds like a slow, disorienting dream, each hour peeling back a layer of fear. Each small kindness striking harder than any weapon. Morning begins with sound, metal pans clinking, the soft murmur of American voices, the hiss of something frying on a grill. The smell travels first carried by the wind, curling into the enclosure like a hand coaxing them. Awake. Eggs. Butter. Bread toasted to a golden edge, a scent so rich it feels like a memory from a world that no longer exists. Yuki's stomach clenches painfully, but she keeps her face expressionless. Hope is dangerous. Hope weakens. A soldier approaches the gate with a tray. He hesitates, searching for the right words, then speaks gently. Breakfast? Eat, please. Please. The women stare as if the word itself is a trap. When the soldier leaves, Hannah whispers, "They want us strong for labor." Or for interrogation. But Yuki notices something impossible. The food isn't thrown at them. Isn't ration like punishment. It is offered. She touches a piece of bread. It is soft, warm. A shock runs through her fingers. She brings it to her lips slowly. Almost fearfully, the first bite floods her mouth with butter and salt. So vivid it brings tears unbidden to her eyes. She turns away quickly so no one sees. Later, another soldier sets down buckets of water, clear, cold, clean enough to reflect the sky. Japan hasn't seen this much clean water in years. In the ruins of cities, people scoop muddy rain from ditches. Here, it is handed to them freely. Masako dips her hands into the bucket and gasps softly. Cold, she whispers. So clean? Around them, the world feels unfamiliar, not hostile, not ruined, not scarred by bombings. American soldiers laugh while playing cards. Someone whistles. While sweeping dirt from a pathway, two men argue over baseball scores in voices light with boredom. Not bitterness. It is like stepping into a parallel universe where war is a distant rumor. Hannah observes quietly. Their world. It's not broken. The words hang heavy. Because back home cities burn, children starve, families bury their dead in gardens because cemeteries overflow. Yuki feels guilt rise like bile. How can she eat warm bread while her homeland is crumbling? How can the enemy's camp feel safer than her own country? In the afternoon, the women are led to wash. They stand in a line, stiff and silent, expecting mockery. Instead, the Americans step back respectfully, giving them space. Soap is passed to them thick, white bars smelling faintly of flowers. Yuki holds hers as if it might dissolve into air. She hasn't touched real soap in months. Her fingers tremble at the smoothness, the weight, the luxury. As she scrubs dirt from her skin, a strange ache forms beneath her ribs, not from shame, not from fear, from awakening. From the slow, painful understanding that everything she was taught about the enemy might be wrong. That realization frightens her more than death ever did. The days that follow do not bring comfort. They bring confusion, slow, creeping, relentless. The women begin to eat regularly now. Meals arrive 3 times a day. Each one warm, balanced, almost luxurious compared to the starvation they knew. Rice steamed until it glistens. Vegetables cut into neat shapes. Actual meat so tender it falls apart at the touch of a fork. Every meal tastes like victory. And yet, every bite burns with shame. Hannah eats quietly, then pushes her plate away. This is wrong, she whispers. We should not accept generosity from the enemy. But her hands shake with hunger when she says it. Masako folds her blanket neatly each morning as if maintaining order can keep her identity from fraying. She says little, but her silence grows heavier each day. Yuki senses it too, this strange tension. Inside all of them, they came here, believing the enemy was cruel. They stayed alive by believing it, but each small kindness erodes that belief like water carving stone. The Psychological war begins without guns. It begins with letters. One afternoon, an American interpreter arrives with a sack of papers. The women are told they can write home. The camp will deliver their letters through Red Cross channels. For a long time, no one moves. Then slowly, hesitantly, they take the paper and pencils offered to them. Yuki stares at the blank sheet in her lap. Her hand refuses to move. What can she possibly write? She thinks of her mother standing at the kitchen doorway, eyes soft with pride, her brother marching off to the front, laughing, waving, her village burning in the distance the night she left. A tear falls onto the page before she even notices the sting in her eyes. Dear mother. She finally writes, her handwriting trembling, I am alive. I am a prisoner. But treated kindly, she stops. The words look wrong. Kindly. How can she write that? How can she confess such a thing? She tears the first page. Tries again. I am fed. Another tear. I am safe. The pencil feels heavier with every word. She hates herself for writing them, but she cannot lie. Not anymore. Not when the truth presses on her chest like a weight. She writes until her throat closes, when the letters are collected. The women exchange glances, uneasy, ashamed, strangely exposed. That evening, after lights out, Yuki lies awake listening to the jungle outside the enclosure. The night hums with insects, leaves rustle like quiet breathing, and in the distance soldiers talk around a fire. Their laughter drifts through the dark warm. Human, unbearably normal. Hannah whispers from the other side of the enclosure. I don't understand them. Why are they kind? We are the enemy. Masako's voice is barely audible, or perhaps we were wrong about what an enemy is. The sentence hits Yuki like a cold wind, because the truth she is beginning to see, the truth she cannot stop, is that the Americans do not treat them like monsters. They treat them like women, like humans, like people who have survived a war, not caused it. It is a kindness so gentle, so quiet, so steady, that it feels like the greatest cruelty, because it forces them to question everything, every lesson. Every promise, every piece of propaganda carved into their bones. In the darkness, Yuki presses a hand to her chest. Her heart feels unfamiliar, as if it has begun beating in a new rhythm she does not yet understand. Asterisk. The days that follow do not bring comfort. Asterisk. They bring confusion, slow, creeping, relentless. The women begin to eat regularly now. Meals arrive 3 times a day, each one warm, balanced, almost luxurious compared to the starvation they knew. Rice steamed until it glistens. Vegetables cut into neat shapes. Actual meat so tender it falls apart at the touch of a fork. Asterisk. Every meal tastes like victory, and yet every bite burns with shame. Asterisk. Hannah eats quietly, then pushes her plate away. This is wrong, she whispers. We should not accept generosity from the enemy. But her hands shake with hunger when she says it. Masako folds her blanket neatly each morning, as if maintaining order can keep her identity from fraying. She says little, but her silence grows heavier each day. Asterisk. Yuki senses it too, this strange tension inside all of them. Asterisk. They came here believing the enemy was cruel. They stayed alive by believing it, but each small kindness erodes that belief like water carving stone. The psychological war begins without guns. It begins with letters. One afternoon, an American interpreter arrives with a sack of papers. The women are told they can write home. The camp will deliver their letters through Red Cross channels. For a long time, no one moves. Then slowly, hesitantly, they take the paper and pencils offered to them. Asterisk. Yuki stares at the blank sheet in her lap. Asterisk. Her hand refuses to move. Asterisk. What can she possibly write? Asterisk. She thinks of her mother standing at the kitchen doorway, eyes soft with pride. Asterisk. Her brother marching off to the front, laughing, waving. Asterisk. Her village burning in the distance the night she left. Asterisk. A tear falls onto the page before she even notices the sting in her eyes. Asterisk. Dear mother. She finally writes, her handwriting trembling. I am alive. I am a prisoner. But treated kindly, she stops. The words look wrong. Kindly. How can she write that? Asterisk. How can she confess such a thing? Asterisk, she tears the first page. Tries again, I am fettle, another tear, I am safe. The pencil feels heavier with every word. She hates herself for writing them, but she cannot lie not anymore. Not when the truth presses on her chest like a weight, asterisk. She writes until her throat closes, asterisk, when the letters are collected. The women exchange glances uneasy, ashamed. Strangely exposed, that evening after lights out, Yuki lies awake listening to the jungle outside the enclosure. The night hums with insects, leaves rustle like quiet breathing, and in the distance soldiers talk around a fire, asterisk, their laughter drifts through the dark warm. Human, unbearably normal, asterisk, Hannah whispers from the other side of the enclosure. I don't understand them. Why are they kind? We are the enemy. Asterisk, Masako's voice is barely audible, or perhaps, we were wrong about what an enemy is. Asterisk, the sentence hits Yuki like a cold wind, because the truth she is beginning to see, the truth she cannot. STOP is that the Americans do not treat them like monsters. They treat them like women, asterisk, like humans, asterisk, like people who have survived a war, not caused it, asterisk, it is a kindness so gentle, so quiet, so steady, that it feels like the greatest cruelty, because it forces them to question everything, asterisk, every lesson, every promise, every piece of propaganda carved into their bones, asterisk, in the darkness. Yuki places a hand to her chest, her heart feels unfamiliar, as if it has begun beating in a new rhythm she does not yet understand, asterisk. The night deepened, and with it came a stillness so complete that even the cicadas seemed to hold their breath. The Japanese women lay awake in their barracks, staring into the darkness, listening to the creaking wood and the faint footsteps of American guards outside. Every sound felt magnified, every whisper of wind like a countdown. Dawn was approaching, and with it their believed execution. Some women prayed silently. Others clutched small belongings, photographs worn from years of war. A few simply sat rigid, eyes hollow, bracing for the unknown. War had stripped them of certainty, of identity. Now, in these last hours, all that remained was the fragile thread of hope, thin, nearly invisible, yet somehow unbroken. Across the camp, a single lantern glowed. Inside the guard hut, 3 American soldiers sat around a small stove. They weren't discussing executions, nor vengeance, nor victory. Instead, they were cracking eggs, folding batter, laying out tins of peaches and bread. One soldier private Hartley held a coffee pot like a sacred vessel. He remembered his mother's words, even an enemy is human before God. Those words had followed him across the Pacific, through fire and shrapnel, and now into this strangely peaceful Texas morning. Think they'll eat it? One soldier asked, stirring the pot. Hartley nodded. If they've got any strength left, and if we can convince them we ain't here to hurt. Hell of a way to start the day, another muttered. Feeding people who think we're marching in to the firing squad, Hartley sighed. We show 'em with actions. Outside, the horizon began to pale, the first stitch of sunlight sewing itself across the sky. Morning, the hour the women feared, their breath quickened. A few stood, trembling, others whispered goodbyes. They expected boots, rifles, orders shouted in a language not their own. What they heard instead was knocking, soft, gentle, almost apologetic. The barracks door opened, and the silhouettes of American soldiers appeared, yet their rifles were slung harmlessly across their backs. In their hands were trays. Steam rising, food, real food. The women froze. One American stepped forward, cleared his throat, and spoke slowly, carefully, as though handling something precious. Breakfast, he said, placing a tray down. For you. The women stared, disbelieving. One covered her mouth. Another stepped back as if the gesture were too foreign, too surreal. For a long moment no one moved. Then an older woman, her hair streaked with silver, her face lined with hardship, approached the tray. She bowed deeply, her hands trembling. The Americans bowed back, awkward but sincere, and without a single order, without any rehearsed protocol, the women began to eat. Hesitantly at first, then with a hunger long suppressed. Tears fell silently. The soft scrape of spoons against tin plates echoed like a prayer. For the first time in months, they tasted kindness. For the first time in years, they tasted humanity. Dawn had come not as an ending, but as an unexpected beginning. The sea was calm by mid-morning, a sheet of shifting blue glass stretching out in every direction. The ship cut through it quietly, gently, as if careful not to disturb the fragile peace that had settled on its deck. The Japanese women sat together near the railing, bowls emptied, hands warmed, their breaths no longer clouded by terror but softened by something unfamiliar. Relief. And confusion. For years they had been taught that surrender meant dishonor, that capture meant torture, that Americans were beasts wearing uniforms. And yet here they were, alive, fed, and treated with a humanity that felt almost unreal. Like a dream a frightened mind invents to survive. One woman, Hannah, with narrow eyes and a long scar beneath her cheek, kept glancing at the American soldiers. Not with fear, but with the cautious curiosity of someone trying to reconcile two conflicting worlds. The world she'd been told existed, and the one unfolding in front of her. She watched as Private Ellison laughed with his friend Ritter over some small joke, their faces open, relaxed. She watched as Sergeant Lewis polished his boots with almost comic intensity. She watched Major Thompson stand with his hands behind his back, scanning the horizon. Sharp but calm, the posture of a man who carried responsibility like weight on his shoulders. Not armor on his chest, not monsters, Hannah whispered. A younger girl beside her, Echo, hugged her knees to her chest. Her voice was barely a breath. Then why did they fight us? Hannah didn't answer. She didn't know. War was a storm none of them had asked for. Yet all of them had been dragged into. Across the deck, Major Thompson quietly approached the women. He didn't carry food this time. He didn't carry orders. Just a folded blanket under one arm, and something softer in his expression. Respect. He stopped a respectful distance away, kneeled, and placed the blanket between them rather than handing it directly. For the cold, he said. Aiko flinched. Hannah didn't move. Silence pooled in the space between them. Then Thompson did something none of them expected. He bowed. Not a shallow nod. Not a casual dip of the head. A full, deep bow, slow, deliberate, dignified, a bow of apology, a bow of peace. A bow no American officer was required to give, yet he gave it anyway. The women looked stunned. Aiko's breath caught in her throat. Why, you bow to us? Thompson rose slowly. His eyes were tired but kind. Because suffering doesn't need a uniform, he said quietly. You're human. You deserve better than what this war did to you. Aiko's lip trembled. Hannah looked away, swallowing hard. For a moment, Thompson seemed like he might say more, but he didn't. He simply nodded and stepped back, giving them space. When he walked away, Aiko clutched the blanket to her chest. It smelled faintly of soap and ocean wind, nothing threatening, nothing violent. Maybe, she whispered, maybe tomorrow will be different. Hannah placed a hand on her shoulder. For the first time, she said softly, tomorrow exists. The sea breeze carried those words, fragile, hopeful, trembling, into the open sky. And somewhere deep inside each of them, a new truth began to grow. Humanity can survive even war. If someone, somewhere, chooses kindness,